Hi, it's been a while since I last did a video on personality types. Though it may not seem relevant or have any apparent correlation to dreams, typology actually plays a critical factor in dream analysis. The personified characters that appear in dreams often take on the form of a particular psychological type, depending on your own type. Therefore, understanding how different cognitive functions work plays an integral role in deciphering elemental factors in dream analysis. Today, I will be going over my own dominant function, introverted thinking. As an INTP myself, I found some of these behavioral facets of introverted thinking to be rather uncomfortable to learn about, but deemed it necessary for me to know in order to grow. I found it slightly demoralizing realizing I had so many blind spots with introverted thinking. Paradoxically, it was also encouraging as it meant there was so much room for progress and improvement in understanding myself. Introverted thinking. Darwin and Kant can be seen as examples of different thinking types. Darwin exemplifies extroverted thinking by focusing on objective facts, while Kant represents introverted thinking by emphasizing subjective factors and critiquing knowledge broadly. Contrasting Cuvier with Nietzsche highlights an even sharper contrast between their approaches. The introverted thinking type prioritizes a form of thinking influenced by subjective ideas rather than objective data, contrasting with the extroverted type. While both types are driven by ideas, the introverted thinker focuses inwardly rather than outwardly, seeking intensity over extensity. This fundamental difference distinguishes the introverted type from its counterpart, as it lacks the intensive connection to external objects typical of the extroverted type. In human interactions, introverts often feel they have a negative impact, ranging from feeling unimportant to being actively unwanted. This negative perception of their effect on others, including indifference or even aversion, makes it challenging to describe introverted personalities. Introverts tend to hide their thoughts and feelings, making them hard to understand. His judgment may come across as cold, stubborn, arbitrary, and inconsiderate because he is more connected to his own thoughts and feelings than to external objects. There's a lack of warmth toward the object, often giving an impression of subjective superiority. While he may show courtesy, friendliness, and amiability, there's often an underlying uneasiness, as if he's trying to appease or disarm potential opponents to avoid conflict. He's not intentionally adversarial, but sensitive individuals may feel pushed away or undervalued by him. Objects or people around him often receive less attention or unnecessary caution, leading to misunderstandings. In trying to compensate for this, he may adopt a facade of politeness that sharply contrasts with his true nature. While he fearlessly explores new ideas and takes risks in his imaginative world, he rarely considers the potential dangers or disruptions they could cause in reality. However, when faced with the prospect of actualizing his ideas, he becomes deeply anxious. Unlike a concerned parent nurturing their offspring, he simply presents his ideas to the world and gets frustrated if they don't succeed independently. His lack of practical skills and distaste for attention contribute to this mindset. If he believes his ideas are subjectively correct, he expects it to be so in practice, and expects others to accept its truth without question. He rarely seeks validation, especially from influential people, and when he does, he often does it clumsily, achieving the opposite of his intention. In his work, he often has uncomfortable interactions with colleagues because he struggles to earn their favor. Usually, he unintentionally makes them feel unimportant. When chasing his ideas, he's typically stubborn and resistant to outside influence. Interestingly, despite this, he can be surprisingly influenced by personal factors. If something seems harmless, he can become very susceptible to negative influences, which can grab hold of him from his unconscious. He is willing to endure mistreatment and exploitation as long as he can pursue his ideas without interruption. He often fails to notice when he's being taken advantage of or harmed in practical ways because he places little importance on his relationship with external objects. This lack of objectivity leaves him without a clear understanding of the true value of his work. While he delves deeply into his problems, he tends to overcomplicate them and get caught up in unnecessary doubts and concerns. Although he may have a clear understanding of his thoughts, he struggles to see how they connect to the real world. It's hard for him to accept that what's clear to him might not be equally clear to others. His writing style is often burdened with many details, qualifications, doubts, and other complexities due to his meticulous nature. As a result, his work progresses slowly and with difficulty. He's either quiet or surrounded by those who don't get him, which reinforces his belief in human ignorance. If he's ever understood, he tends to trust too easily. Ambitious women can take advantage of his trusting nature, making him an easy target, or he may develop into a misanthropic bachelor with a childlike heart. His outward demeanor can be awkward, as if he's eager to avoid attention, or he may exhibit a surprising lack of concern, almost childlike in its simplicity. In his area of expertise, he often faces strong opposition, and he struggles to handle it effectively. Sometimes he gets drawn into unproductive arguments driven by his primitive emotions. His broader social circle may perceive him as inconsiderate and overbearing. However, the more one gets to know him, the more positive the judgment tends to be, and his closest friends truly appreciate his company. However, to those who only observe him from a distance, he may seem standoffish, aloof, or even bitter due to his antisocial tendencies. He's not very effective as a personal teacher because he struggles to understand the mindset of his students. Moreover, teaching doesn't hold much interest for him unless it presents a theoretical challenge. He's not great at teaching because his mind is often focused on the material itself rather than simply presenting it. As his personality intensifies, he becomes increasingly rigid in his beliefs. He rejects outside influences and becomes less sympathetic toward the world around him, relying more on his close relationships. His expression becomes more personal and sometimes insensitive, and his ideas become deeper but harder to express. This gap in expression is filled by emotions and sensitivity. While he may reject external influences, they still reach him internally, often from his unconscious mind, leading him to gather evidence against them and against things in general, which may be superfluous to others. Due to his poor connection with external reality, he starts to prioritize his personal concerns above all else. He begins to equate his subjective beliefs with his own identity. While he may not directly impose his convictions on others, he tends to respond defensively and personally to any criticism, even if it's valid. In every aspect, his isolation grows over time. Initially, his insightful ideas turn destructive as they become tainted by bitterness. His battle against unconscious influences intensifies alongside his external isolation, eventually crippling him. Although he might seek even greater isolation to shield himself from these influences, it often exacerbates the internal conflict that's tearing him apart. The thinking style of introverted individuals is constructive and forward-looking, aiming to develop ideas that increasingly reflect timeless truths or fundamental concepts. However, when these ideas lose their connection to real-world experiences, they become mythical and irrelevant to the present situation. Therefore, this type of thinking remains valuable only inasmuch as it is based in reality, as long as it remains grounded in observable facts. If it becomes purely mythical, it loses relevance and becomes self-absorbed. The less conscious functions of feeling, intuition, and sensation, which balance introverted thinking, are of lower quality and have a basic, outwardly focused nature. They are responsible for the external influences that trouble this type. Defensive behaviors such as protective measures and avoidance guard against perceived magical influences, including a vague fear of the opposite sex. Thank you so much for watching. I have also developed an app with additional insight into psychological types developed by Carl Jung that aids in understanding the dynamics of cognitive functions with each other. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested in learning more.